Let's start with a little roll call here, and I'm Chair Pete Peterson.
Forrest Dunbar.
Jackie Egan.
Christopher Hudson.
Eric Kraft.
Dean Gates.
Barbara Jones.
Well, fantastic. Well, I hope everyone had a great Christmas, fantastic Christmas, and I guess we'll go to some new business. How about a vote-by-mail update?
Well, I can give you a vote-by-mail update. I think the most important thing for you is the mock election. And so, basically, I don't have enough of these for everybody, so I just made enough for the 4 members of the committee. And so, Dick, if you and Chris could share, and Dean and I will share. Okay. So, on the first page, I'm asking the Ethics and Elections Committee to certify the mock election, and I have a little bit of information on the front page for you. I think the most important part is we had about 257 employees actually participated. I think it's probably closer to 293 is probably the correct number there. There were a number of ballots that we set aside for testing, and so that number should be 293. We're doing a survey to find out why people didn't participate. I think that was Forrest's request. Some of you have this piece of paper in front of you. Forrest, here's a copy for you, and Eric has one, and there's an extra one for you, Chris. This is our compilation of comments from voters, so these came directly to the election. So you can see the concerns were, I don't want to put my signature on the outside of the envelope, I didn't receive a ballot. I heard that from some people at the table here. So the date of the election wasn't clear. You can see, where can I drop my ballot off? I'm not happy that we have to pay for postage. That was our most common complaint. And then some of the other ones that were a little bit more minor. But what we've also done, we've are teaming up with the Innovation Lab, Brendan Babb's group, and they're doing a test with the ballot package, and taking it to people and asking them what they think, what this means to them, what instructions are missing. And so they're doing a test on that for us. And then we'll do a formal survey to all the municipal employees to get their comments as well. So I think that's a real important thing, and if any of you have some comments, we'd really appreciate it if you'd get back to us. I was talking to Eric before the meeting, and I told him that our barcodes were too close on the envelopes, and it caused some problems for the machine to read these 2 barcodes that were really close to each other. And so other people complained about, having their name and then having the return lines at the top. And so we're going to move that around so that it reads a little bit better. People asked us if we could put the date of the election on the envelope, and unfortunately we can't do that because we want to use the ballot stock for more than one election, and otherwise then I have to print exactly the right number or it's wasted. So the ballot, they won't have the date. But there are some things like that we know we need to fix. It says return on election day. It needed to say by election day. There were some typos like that. It had witness 1 signature because the old one you had to have 2 witnesses. Well, we forgot to take 1 out. It just needed to say witness if you needed a witness. So we do have some corrections we're going to make to the envelope, and the input from people was really helpful for that.
So, did we have people, the voters that were confused and as to whether they needed a witness's signature?
Well, I don't know that we got any calls about it. I think we did get, someone said, I know I don't need a witness, but this isn't clear.
Okay.
And so we clarified that. I think the other ones, and we had someone who tested us very harshly, the ballot itself didn't say use blue or black ink. So we have to, no, you just looked at me like, well, of course you use blue or black ink. Well, so our tester used pencil, used orange highlighter, yellow highlighter, and tore the ballot in multiple places, tore the envelope. So in any event, we learned quite a bit about that process.
But didn't use crayons?
No, but I will tell you, we discovered that yellow, orange, and red do not tabulate. So we have to, we've created a new procedure because of that. And highlighter, like especially orange or yellow highlighter, we can't see that. So we've got some new instructions that we need on the actual ballot itself that we're going to have to fix. But I think all of those things were really helpful exercises. In the second bullet, we had about 12 people here that we started processing in the morning. We handled all the rejects. We got them over here. We opened them. We got them over there by 2:30 at the end of the day and tabulated. And you can see on the attached, we have the tabulation. And it's about the fourth page in. And the Ship Creek Sockeye Salmon won the team contest. So that was one of the results of the election. You can see there that we tallied 207 ballots.
Shucks, I went with the Anchorage Albatross, so I was almost last.
And they voted to not increase the dues, but yes, spend the money.
Right.
Yeah, that's us.
Like the electorate. I'm looking at the 16%. So actually, I remember when I came in here, I thought you only had like 180 ballots or something. So a bunch
Right.
more must have kept coming in.
Correct.
So 293 isn't so bad. 16% turnout. I mean, what I'm thinking about is, like, on the one hand, these should all be super voters because they're municipal employees that would have their addresses. In a way, it's a much better subset. It's a subset that should be easy to target. On the other hand, there was no get out the vote efforts. So this is kind of a testament to just how much things like Fair Anchorage or a mayoral campaign or the Republican Party, like, they actually do turn their people out to vote. And talking to Chris's concerns about some people, there's some people who are going to vote compel or high water, and there are other people that aren't sure. And basically, the entire point of political campaigns is to grab those people that aren't sure by the lapels and get them to vote. Right? Now, the community you're talking about is another step there, where even the political campaigns can't find them sometimes. It's a challenge. But I don't know. I think that I don't think the 16% is actually that indicative of what the turnout will be come the real election.
Right. And in addition to not doing any get out the vote, you can see that we only gave people a week, and you all only had a week from the day they were mailed until the day they were due, which is just not enough time.
If we could have tricked them into thinking it was actually a real thing, too, like, should you all get a 25-cent raise? Then we would have had a huge turnout.
You want to get the SAT?
Yeah, I do feel that SAT.
Right, and then we'd all be in trouble because we didn't do it afterwards.
Right. No, it's considering there were literally no stakes for the employees and there was no get out the vote.
And there was a cost.
A Sam. Yeah.
We didn't, I don't think that we measured that, but I would bet, Jackie, you probably know this, over half of employees did not mail their ballots
I brought
back.
mine in.
Right. Over half of the
I actually
people.
drove to the Fairview Rec Center to drop it there.
Uh-huh.
Well, didn't you say this holds true?
We
talked
didn't have
about
the
this.
Dropbox out at the rec
They
center.
did not.
You were just at City Hall, right?
Too expensive.
Too early.
Yeah.
But you said that in other locations they've done this, they get a huge percentage of their votes at the drop boxes on the day of.
Yeah, well, on the day of and over the whole election. So in Denver County, 2016, presidential, 70% of voters use the drop boxes. And so I'm really intrigued by that, because that means 30% voted either, so you could have returned it by mail or voted at one of their accessible vote centers. So less than 30% returned them by mail. I think that's just stunning. But it is a testament to the drop boxes. So we'll keep track of the drop boxes. We'll keep track of the high use locations. That's part of the process. And then if we need to add more, then we'll probably do that.
Well, so we feel the reason that happened is because they don't trust the U.S. mail, or anybody got any ideas why that happened?
Yes.
You think it's the stamp? Really?
I don't think it's the stamp. I think it's
It was for me.
For me, having grown up in rural Alaska, it's the distrust of the post office. And not like they're bad people, but just I think I'm mostly going to walk my ballot in and drop it at one of the accessible vote centers, just to know that here, I've taken my thing, I've given it to you, we're good.
Right. I think one of the things about vote by mail that we discuss is vote by mail is an alternative ballot delivery system. We're just delivering it by mail, but voters have lots of options of how to return it. You're not required to return it by mail. So I think that the cost of the stamp, the assembly on the C when you pass vote by mail, the cost of 46 cents versus driving to a polling location, you decided was the same, so you didn't have a private economic effect. But what's different is gas is probably easier to get than a stamp. And that is what we hear, is most people don't have stamps, don't know where to get stamps.
Right. It's not the 45 cents, it's the waiting in line.
Culture's changed, Barbara. We used to use stamps. We used to send letters.
Right.
How do people send letters today? You get on the computer and send an email and you're done.
Yeah. So I think that is one issue. And I think, Forrest, that you are also right regarding the post office. One of the comments on here was about the signature on the outside of the envelope, and that people have some concerns about privacy. And so I think they're much more inclined to put it in a Dropbox where only election workers have access to that. And then they know that we've got it. They're not worried about where it is in transit. So I think that's right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the day of the election, leading up to the day, but particularly
Yes.
on the day, how often do you retrieve the ballots from the drop boxes?
Well, they're retrieved daily. So every day we're going to empty each of the drop boxes.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
If you have the manpower to do it, I think you should empty the drop boxes on the day of the election, like the official day, more than once in the day. And the reason is because there are only 8 of them. And
12.
Okay, 12 of them. And we know that there are certain parts of the city that vote systematically one way or another. I can think of a couple ones. And so if someone were to drop cement or an incendiary device into one of these drop boxes towards the end of the day, you would destroy a ton of ballots all in one direction. Does that make sense?
I think that, and we will do that. So we have a routine where we pick up ballots during the day, and we'll pick up ballots during the day on election day and at 8:00 p.m. on election
So
day.
more than once on election
Yes,
day.
more than once we won't wait until 8. That's too late, and it's too disruptive to our process. We'll just follow the routine process.
Ballot boxes have some kind of a suppression system in them, not
They
for
do.
liquids, but for any kind of incendiary.
They have fire suppressors in them, 2 of them. And if you look at the way the door is slanted like this, and then it opens down, so you kind of have to have a siphon to get. But we agree that we don't want to risk that, and we will pick them up. And if there's a huge volume in there, like at 10 in the morning when we pick up, maybe we'll pick up at 2, pick up at 10 and 2 and 8. I think that's a good idea.
Do we know how many ballots one of those drop boxes holds? I mean, how many thousand before they get
Yeah.
stuff anymore in
They
there?
don't know.
We don't know that.
I don't think we're going to have to worry about it.
Should, as long as we were talking
Yeah.
about it, I
Yep.
thought, well, let's
I
throw it out
think-
there.
I think that I think we could try it, but I think it would be, one of those mail trays holds like 1,000, and so you can see that would be like probably 5,000 or 6,000. So I think we're good.
Okay, fantastic.
So the next thing that I thought I really wanted to point out to you was bullet number 3 is the opportunity to cure letters, and you're going to see a little bit about this in a minute. So on the second page, you can see that there's some rejected envelopes for no signature on the envelope, no signature on file with the state of Alaska, no signature match with the state. Those are problems that voters had that they have an opportunity to cure. So when we got those on the first day, I am very happy to report that we got 12 letters out the very first day to these Muni voters and told them your signature doesn't match, your signature isn't on file, or you forgot to sign. And we got a number of them in before the public session of Canvas to correct that problem. That is what all of these desks and computers are over here for. These people it's for the review and resolution team, and they're trying to resolve those problems. But I'm really happy to report that we were able to get it done in the first day.
Wait a minute, so this lists the rejects. How many cured?
Did you know I didn't list that, but it was fairly low. I think out of the 12 that we sent, I'm thinking probably about, it was probably like 8 cured. So I've got 3 that didn't cure in the one and 2 that didn't. So there were 12. So yeah, that's 8.
Stay here and watch.
So 20 people voted that were actually live outside the municipality?
Oh, yes. So I need to tell you about that too. So in the reject column there where there's 20, we had a stakeholders meeting down here, and our stakeholders is people from all over the community that are involved in elections, and we gave them ballots and envelopes, and they all voted. And what was interesting is some of them were municipal employees, so those ballots counted, but some of them were not, and so theirs did not count.
Oh, I see.
It wasn't necessarily outside the Muni, it was outside of employment.
Right, and that's why I kind of wrote that, not registered in mock election outside. Our term is outside the MOA, that's the code. But yes, they were not. And so it worked. We confirmed that they weren't on the database, and then we didn't count their ballot.
It's really not so much vote by mail as ballots by mail. Right.
It's a alternative ballot delivery system.
Encouraged by mail, but there's all kinds of options for you to vote.
Well, and more options is hopefully going to get more people out to vote. Right now, the one option, they have a couple options now. They can vote absentee, which is basically vote by mail now if they really want to, and that's been increasing every year. But we have to retrain them, re-educate them to. You don't have to drive to your neighborhood polling location anymore. This is convenient. We can vote at home while we're having dinner or
Right.
drinking a bottle of wine or whatever.
So the other update that we should probably talk about, and I've kind of combined vote by mail and the mock election update, is our outreach and education. And I think some of you may have met Carolyn Hall Jensen. She was an election worker for us last year, and Pete, I know, has met her, and I'm not sure how many of the rest of you have. But Amanda recommended her to take over outreach and education. She's on vacation right now. but she has a communications undergraduate degree and is working on her master's in public policy at UAA right now. And so she used to work for KTVA as a camera person, I believe. And so she's taken over outreach and education. She has gotten all of our media buys done for us for TV. That was our priority. We wanted it done by the end of the year. And it's done. And as I mentioned, we have a tiny $20,000 budget. And she's got $10,000 in media, or TV media. And then the other 10 we're going to work on radio. Now, the whole communication plan, she has worked on a communication plan, and we've had an offer of some assistance from the administration, and Charles Boyle from PM&E is working with Carolyn, and Jim Jager from the port also has offered some assistance. So we've got a big communication plan, which includes social media. We're going to do third cuts in the utility bills. It'll include radio and then some other outreach and education. So at the last steering committee meeting, which is Dick, LV, Ernie, and Pete, at that meeting Dennis Wheeler reported our risks. And he had 2 risks. And one was our AO, that we need to get our AO done. And number 2 was outreach and education. And he said the $20,000, you need about 60 to do what you need to do. So Dennis was concerned about that. And I am very happy to report at a meeting last week, the mayor's office offered me the other $40,000. So they said they'll find it. So that puts our outreach and education, at least we're going to be able to get the word out now to those 226,000 voters. It'll be probably more TV, lots of radio, and then we'll be able to do some other things, which, again, Carolyn has a plan.
You have $60,000, you said?
We will have $60,000.
I spent $85,000 in my race. I think we spent 110, 105. Spent 100. Doing citywide, I mean, $60,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money. I mean, I never went up on TV because it's too expensive. You're going to get more earned media than we did. Hopefully you'll be able to get the TV stations to do a couple of stories about it.
I imagine the newspaper would do a story about it.
So you remember any PSA, or it's all paid? Like they don't do free for us?
They did a 50% match.
It was just on that line.
Who did the match? Oh, the TV people?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, there will be public radio, and you'll hear it out on the talk radio, so you don't be talking about it, but those you can't count on.
So one of the other things, and I had mentioned this earlier, that on all of our materials we'll have something that's produced by MOA Elections or something at the bottom of those. And our logo, all of our publications, the posters, the brochures, all of those are available free for downloading. So we expect that the campaigns will use that stuff. We expect that when they go out door to door, that they'll take our stuff with them. And so I think that gives us a tiny bit of an advantage.
There aren't a lot of campaigns this time, so there will be some of that, but there aren't a lot of campaigns. So.
Yeah, I mean, so there's really only one campaign that will have the size and wherewithal. Well,
Same race.
What's that? Well, so far there's only one that has demonstrated that can do it.
Well, let's talk about that, because I admit I'm fairly non-political, so I don't understand this, but I think I need to know it. So we have the mayor's race.
Yeah.
So will the mayor be going door to door?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, well, I don't know if we can go door to door, but his campaign will do a lot of
Canvassing.
Okay. So he could take materials to people to encourage them to vote.
Sure, and he will be, he'll be using those materials to get people to get out the vote. They have to be able to vote, so he'll be doing that. So far, his opponent hasn't.
Oh, she's raising money.
She's raising money.
It'll happen, and the Republicans will get behind it. There will be two campaigns there, and then there will be the Fair Anchorage versus
Yeah, that's true.
the other guy. And I think that's the only campaigns you'll see activated. I mean, you'll have the school district people.
School board.
Yeah, the school bonds, yes. people.
Them too. Yeah, the school bonds, yes, maybe. The school board races they'll all be just doing their own.
How's it going? Sorry to interrupt. Winnie, come here.
They'll be doing just.
everybody can
They'll be doing just name recognition stuff. They won't. None of those people will be big enough to get up to vote.
So both as a practical matter and to avoid any allegation of favoritism.
Does he need help?
What's going on?
Yeah, does he need help? Could you ask him to help him, please? Thank you.
How we doing, Matt?
We're doing good, brother. How about yourself? Hello.
Okay, just an escaped dog.
Okay, thank you.
Have we met with Rebecca Logan's campaign? Are we going to meet with all the campaigns?
That is not something that our office typically does.
No, I know, and probably for good reason, but it seemed like there might be this is new, we want to we want to do two things, at least. We want to make sure everyone understands the rules ahead of time so nobody feels disadvantaged. And we'd like to encourage every campaign, in whatever you do, to hand out this thing.
So I think you do that when they come in to get their name on the ballot. When they sign the paperwork, they're official.
They could do that. I think what you should do is have them don't meet with them separately. Meet with them together.
A big open house of thing, yeah.
And you can do it, and invite everyone. But the two that you need to really hammer are just make sure that the mayor and Rebecca Logan's campaigns.
And Fair Anchorage and
Non-fair Anchorage or whatever they're going to do.
Unfair Anchorage.
Unfair Anchorage.
that's when people.
Sorry, but right. So, but
Yeah, and have the materials there.
right. Dual purpose of you. We actually do want you to, and we want to make sure we're playing fair with everybody.
But I think also
Proceed.
it might be wise to have some materials prepared at the time when they come in to sign up for the ballot. Right, that you actually, part of the packet you hand them is, and here is information on vote by mail, because here's a stack of these flyers, tell everybody. Give everyone the same amount, so it's not a municipal resource going to
You can copy these.
Yeah, that's fair.
But literally at that moment, you have every one of them coming in to make a show.
Right.
And you could even, when they have the cameras there, because often that happens, talk to the camera, vote by mail. So.
Yeah, okay, but anyway, but I think the open house thing, even if you did that other is, and we're here on this day to answer any questions, to give you more, to whatever it is.
Okay.
Some will take advantage, some won't, but the opportunity there, and we hope a lot. You would like as many campaigns as possible to hand out a standard flyer saying, here's the thing.
That is correct.
Right. So like here's our campaign lit, and here's the vote by mail lit. And there's nothing wrong with them doing that because we are providing it for free to everyone.
And what the campaigns are going to want to do is they're going to want to chase after the voters with a mailer, just like we did with absentee votes. So they're going to want to know what day are these ballots going out in the mail, because they want their information to arrive the day before or at the same time.
So we invited. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Training?
Barbara, as you're doing this, you're telling me we're never going back over everything. I want to make sure it's no special thing. We're going to do this permanently.
Okay.
You can't guarantee that.
I can. There's a lot of something we're not going back. And if I get off the something, try and change it, I'll tread off the $360,000 in fees for equipment. We're not going back to precinct voting. They just need to know that.
So we have the stakeholders group, and there's about 50 or so people on the stakeholders group. And in about August or September, I believe it was, we found out who the organizations are that run campaigns. And I think there were 4 of them. And again, I'm fairly apolitical on this stuff, but it was Strategies 360, Lotsfeld, Larkin, Dittman,
Ship Creek Group.
Ship Creek Group. All right, so there was 5 of them. So I found them all, and I invited all of them to join the stakeholders group. I asked them to participate in the mock election and to come and ask us for that information so we could test to see if we could produce it for them. Matt Larkin has come to the meetings, and I think we had open house here, and there were 2 people from one of those organizations at that open house. So they know what they need, and I told them in the meeting that we thought we would be able to produce reports. That was one of the things I was showing Eric. We haven't paid for the machine yet because the programming for the reports isn't done, and that was one of the requests that we had, is we need to be able to produce the reports who has returned their ballots, because the campaigns will not want to, that's what they did with absentee,
Right.
and then they won't contact those voters anymore.
Robert, could you talk about public affairs on base? Because most squadrons have a person that does voting. You know, they reach out to constituents, reach out to military members to help them learn how to vote.
Okay,
And I'm sure we could get on their system and get vote by mail out there so they understand how we're changing voting.
all right.
Will the school district help at all? Can they help at all?
I asked that during the meeting.
Yeah, you did. What was the answer?
Can they send something? What?
Yeah, just a little
That's right.
thing.
Something home with the kids.
Send
Yeah.
help
Well,
with
the same flyer we're handing to all of them can be sent home with every student? Or they said they don't want to
the
do it?
superintendent would do every single flyer, because they always do flyers,
Yeah.
and they have yet to respond.
Have you, I remember that, have you reached out and gotten a similar, like, no? Or-
I have had a couple of requests to the school district that I've not gotten a response to, but when I mentioned that, they said, oh, no, don't ever accept a no response. Contact this person or that person or that person. So I will follow up to Dick's request and find out.
I have to go on that and say, don't forget your ballots coming in front of us on the 9th of January meeting.
Budget,
Like
you mean budget, no?
Yeah, you should talk to Tam if you get.
Sorry.
Got it.
Tam's actually up this time too, so
Let's
she's.
make this.
I need to do it before the
She's
19th.
on the ballot this time?
Still not.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we're running their elections too. It's their election as well.
That's true.
Okay, I will do that, Dick. And all. Okay. So, I'm sorry that Carolyn isn't here and I don't have that report on the outreach and education. I wonder if it might be worthwhile, Mr. Chair, to have a special meeting with this group in maybe about 2 weeks, and then we can have Carolyn report to you about what that outreach and education plan is, since that is one of our risks. I think we've supposedly got the money now, but I still think that your input on that focus would be helpful. And I will tell you, one of my biggest concerns is that after this election, I don't want people to come up to me and say, I never knew we were going to vote by mail. I figure I'm going to get probably 100 people that are going to say that. I have no doubt. But I don't want it to be 2,000 or 10,000. And so I think if you could help us really target that message, I would appreciate it.
And so that actually segues nicely into my next subject, and that is, when do we want to meet next month? My situation is that I'm going on vacation, and I'm going to be in Mexico.
Happy birthday, Ray.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, very happy.
And so I'm leaving on January 16th at 5 in the morning. So if we're going to have a meeting next month, we should do it before I leave, because I won't be back until we could have, the only date in the second half of the month I'd be available would be on the 31st of January.
You're not going to be available for the meeting with
23rd? You're flying back for the meeting on the 23rd?
No, I'll be calling in hopefully.
Okay, if you're out here, just leave your vote. You're in a position to vote for you. Don't worry, we'll take care of it for you.
So what day is the 16th?
It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday.
I need a little bit of opinion, okay?
Oh, wait a minute.
So how about, well, so January 11th or January 10th, that seems like
Oh, wait a
too
minute, no.
soon. Is there something that's really pressing?
We could do it on the 15th, on Monday the 15th, if you'd like.
Yeah.
Oh, bummer. Thank you.
Oh, is that Martin Luther King birthday or something? Or President's Day?
Yeah, it's
February must be
January.
President's Day, right?
And Elizabeth Bratrovich Day.
Gotcha.
Well, I don't know, we'll have to see if maybe the 11th or 12th.
Wait, when do you get back, Pete?
I get, I know I don't get back until the 31st, or late on the 30th.
Oh, wow, you're going for a while.
So,
Drive it down here, fine.
I'm flying.
but Friday is what day then? Friday is
Friday would be maybe the 12th?
the 12th. Would you like us to meet at City Hall if you have work sessions on that date? And we'll just do a little bump at the end of a work session, and we'll just tell you we'll just give you the outreach and education plan. And then if you even want to take it and get back to us with some input, that would be the focus of that meeting.
All right.
And then I do think we should meet on the 31st. I think that, we're gearing up here, and I need your help and input.
Okay. So we're looking at the 12th and the 31st next month.
If that's all right with all of you.
All righty then.
Okay. I'll have Lisa fit us in on the 12th with one of your work sessions. Okay?
Now, it says on our agenda here that we need to certify this mock election. So, do we need to have a motion made by one of the members of this committee to certify this first ever election, vote by mail?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes. So
Great.
we have a certification of our mock election.
Thank you. So a couple of other things that we know we need to do. We didn't do a recount on the mock election, and this race, even though it's kind of silly, they were both pretty close, just a separation of 2 votes on one and, about not quite 12 on the other. So we're going to do a recount over there. We're going to practice that. And so in February, we're going to do another whole end-to-end testing. So some of those ballots that we saved, I think there was about 50 of them, we're going to run and practice the whole thing again.
Should we not have certified it if you're going to do a recount?
No, because you should have. You can certify and then recertify after the recount. We've done that before, right, Dick?
So I noticed we had undervotes in some of these. So some people voted, but they didn't vote all parts of the ballot.
And that's going to happen with re-election.
Oh yeah. The further down the ballot you go, the less people vote. They may vote for
Right.
those top couple candidates, but when they get into the propositions, it starts falling off.
Yeah.
2014, there were thousands who only voted for the marijuana thing.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What, 1,000?
They all showed up, thousands. They all showed up, voted yes on marijuana, ignored the rest of the ballot. That's why marijuana got more votes.
People voting yes, they couldn't.
Marijuana got more votes
than
than
any candidate. More votes than Doug Young, more votes than the governor, more votes than any candidate was marijuana.
I did not know that. That's very funny.
14.
So that is about all I've got. I'm very open to, comments, suggestions. We're starting to gear up. We'll start hiring people next month. We're pretty short-handed right now, but we're managing. And then I mentioned to Eric that I'm kind of bowing out of the clerk's office, and Lisa's taking over there. And so I probably won't have much to do with that for a while.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah.
The computer system isn't. Granicus, it's been, for how we run our meetings, like every meeting we're having to do voice votes, and it's not gotten better.
It's all right.
Different issue.
Technical difficulties.
Don't you worry about
You're
it.
doing a
Well,
good job with
it is a problem because we were ready to do a sole source contract to buy a new system, and the fact that Granicus isn't working well is making that decision a lot more problematic.
So
Yes.
my only item on this, and we were previously discussing this before we went on the record, is this notion of stepping outside of our targeting of the 75,000 for sure votes and even the maybe 150,000 mid-range of voters and trying to target some people who are challenged at the ballot, and it might be a pretty small number, which could be English as a second language, in particular 5 or 6 key languages, and then for my neighborhood, who I've heard the most from residents, and I have heard about this from a number, is the idea of people who are transient, not just homeless, but multiple moves in a year, people who are housed but don't have stability, so they're moving from location to location. And so I'm concerned that in the lower economic neighborhoods, we're going to have higher bar to voting. And I want to make sure that we're discussing openly and coming up with strategies to identify that. And it sounds like Carol Hall Jensen might be an important participant in that conversation, as well as the mayor's office. So this is a concern. I think that it isn't just throw money at it, but there might be a resource question that we have to allocate and find. But it's important to me. I have definitely heard about this from my neighbors.
So I really want to challenge us about this. You said we got the 75,000 who voted and the other 150,000. That's 225,000. I expect there's about 226,000 people that are registered to vote. So we have a limited amount of money, $60,000 now. And so one of the things I need to know, what specifically are you concerned about, and what specifically do you think we can do that isn't general education?
And I think that I answered that by saying probably we need to have Carol Hall Jensen and understanding what the communication plan is and how it intends to reach the community, because until I see that, I can't say what you're doing or not doing.
But you must have some ideas if you think that, yes.
I would say actively engaging with community groups at their locations with ambassadors that go out and reach out to them and say, this is coming, this is how it works. That would be one thing. Very much in person, where people are, when they are, not just social media or TV strategies that reach to, English-speaking middle-class people and above, but to direct them to where community groups are active and engaged and figure out a way. But I can't speak specifically until I've had a chance to really see that communication strategy and read it. So that's what I think the next step is.
So I can tell you some of that is already happening, and Carolyn does report to me, so I'm responsible for that. So as far as many of the people on the stakeholders group, is there a trust, the land trust? Where is Radica from? Okay, so Radica has quite a presence on that group, and they and Amy Kaufman with Welcoming Anchorage is also on the group, and so is the League of Women Voters. So right now, what we have going is that they're working on a grant to get a grant through the community councils, and then they're going to translate the educational materials into 5 or 6 languages, and then those are the materials that I was talking about they have to put prepared by a grant with the Federation of Community Councils, because you can't say that it was prepared by us. And regrettably, being a lawyer, I'm worried about getting sued.
Right.
And I don't want us to get sued because there was an error in the translation. So that's why we want to make sure that, and they've agreed to that. And so those groups they've already met with a Korean group, and they're going to each of those community groups and making presentations at that time. We have a system set up on the website. It's called FormStack, and you can request a vote-by-mail presentation at your community group. And we have agreed that anyone can make those requests. Like, if I know that a Hmong group is meeting, I can make a request on their behalf. And Joyce Anderson from the League of Women Voters is monitoring that, and they're setting up all of those outreach and education events. We just don't have enough staff to do it here. So we're going out, and the League has been here and done several tours, and we have talking points that Amanda prepared. So they'll be going out to do that. So I think we've addressed actively engaging with community members where they are. That is part of the plan. As far as the transient community, I don't know how to do that or what to do about that. So if you have some ideas about how to address the homeless community, we would be happy to hear about
I'm
that.
not speaking about homeless people. In fact, I'm talking about the people who are housed but less stable than the average population. People who have moved 3 times in the last year or
Okay.
2 years. Homeless people, there are a few networks. We have a strong social network of support for homeless shelters, providers, all of that. But it's really that margin in between. But again, I think we can table this until I've seen the communication plan, because that will help me understand where the outreach is happening and see how my neighborhoods are reflected in there.
Well, there's nothing in it right now about transient
Right.
voters. So if you have some ideas and can tell us what to do, we can add it.
The one thing Chris raised that I've actually had raised to me too is the ESL question. How do we resolve that? Are there ballots in other languages available at the accessible vote centers?
No,
Do we do any right now in the municipality? Do we do any non-English ballots?
no.
Okay, so it's not a change. We're just the same place. And how come we weren't? The state lost a couple of lawsuits dealing with the UPIC language, for example. Why aren't we subject to those orders?
Well, fortunately, Dean is here and probably knows this better than I do, but it's my understanding that the Voting Rights Act does not apply, the language interpreting issues do not apply to Anchorage, and it's based on the last census. And then if you have certain language population groups, Spanish speakers, Hmong speakers, Korean speakers, Russian speakers, in that equal a certain percent, then they have to be low English proficient. And there's one other criteria that I don't remember what it is, but Anchorage does not meet that. So even though percentage-wise we have speakers in those categories, on the census they do not report that they are low English proficient. So they are sufficiently proficient in English that neither the municipality nor the state is required to do that. And even if Anchorage was one of those locations, municipalities are not covered by the language, because some municipalities, if you think about it, they're not like Anchorage, they're like Houston, Alaska, and they could never afford it to do that. And when I did talk to Dennis Wheeler about ESL, he, and if we wanted to do ballot translation, he said you probably could do that, but he said, I think you need to request a full-time staffer to do that, take over if you want to translate ballots into other languages. Now, the state actually is having trouble getting translators to translate their ballots, so I know that they're struggling right now. So I think Dean has one other thing about the Voting Rights Act. I know we had a compliance issue that we were covered on when you and I both first started, and that was concerning it was concerning malapportionment.
Malapportionment?
Right. When the assembly redistricting, we had to get that approved by the Department of Justice.
Oh, the pre-clearance stuff?
Yeah, that part of the Voting Rights Act
Right.
has been overruled
Right.
by the court decision, so that was Title V, I think. So we're not required to get pre-clearance anymore from the Department of Justice for apportionment and things like that. Another part of the Voting Rights Act that you mentioned about the language accessible ballots applying to the rest of Alaska but not Anchorage. That's true, I remember that as well. So that's what they have in Southwest Alaska, that issue, where there was an entitlement to have language translation required by federal law, but we don't have that here. It'd be a courtesy if we provide language translations for our ballots here.
Chris?
I think it's less a question of what the Voting Rights Act requires, or even ballots, than it is a question of how are we doing our outreach and education, to whom are we doing outreach and education to, and how are we communicating to them. And that's the question we can resolve in advance. It doesn't have anything to do with that incredibly high standard of ensuring every word of this ballot translates exactly, but instead educating the people who don't have, who do have limited English proficiency, that vote by mail is coming. Everything has changed. That seems to be something that's reasonable and sensible for us to be doing. Whether it's that group, whether it's with funds from us that goes to a grant to the Federation, whether it's from that organization, the Community Foundation, their group, if they fund it or not, it's competition. So, but I think we actually have a responsibility to do a measure of outreach to those populations. I wasn't suggesting we do ballot translation because I haven't even thought about the ballot. I'm just thinking about how we're reaching our neighbors.
I mean, it could be something as simple as that symbol, or let's say vote by mail, and then the date, translate that into Hmong, and hang a banner at Red Apple.
And have a website that leads people to just a little bit of information. Hey, it's going to be different. And if you need more information, call someone who's been identified as a community leader who would take that on.
That would hit a bunch of the Hmong, or like the same but in Spanish at the Catholic Church if they'd let us.
So I'm open to this. I'm just telling you that I think it's risky. We are missing a very bright full-time person who used to run these elections. This is a brand new system. I am stretched very, very thin right now, and I do not have time to supervise that or staff it. And I think some of you know that my background was with the Equal Rights Commission. We translated all of our brochures into 7 languages. We did videos. We did lots of outreach and education. I know how to do it. And what my request is, we have this stakeholders group. I mentioned Radica. I've talked to you about Amy Kaufman with Welcoming Anchorage. I'm going to, and the grant with the Federation, I'm going to ask you to let us rely on them to do now I think LEP is different than ESL. So I'm going to ask that we rely on them to do that work. I am very concerned that we don't have enough to do. We're barely going to get done. I'm going to be so happy on April 4th.
The requirements are more than your resources.
Pardon me?
The requirements are more than your resources. That is understood. And I would say that both of those people, Radhika and Amy, are of the 8 people who came and approached me separately of their concerns about not being able to reach their targets. And so I'm afraid they too are under-resourced for the application that we're hoping to have them engage in. And so I'm hopeful we can figure that out.
What about suggesting to the League of Women Voters that they have interpreters available on the phone to help people? I don't know how you would get those phone numbers, advertised, but
the league was asked to help with this, and they declined because they said they're already volunteering. They're doing tours down here twice a month and doing presentations all across the city to any group that'll ask them, whether they're ESL or LEP or anything. They don't have the resources either.
If it's a foreign language, ESL language, ask for the League of Women Voters to come and have their own translator on site. Translate the League of Women Voters presentation. That would work, I guess.
And it's also funding those translators. I mean, no one knows where that's going to come from either. That's another resource that you don't have, that hasn't yet shown up, because it is expensive and time-consuming for interpreters. So that's a concern that was brought to me as well.
Well, my understanding is that when Amy Kaufman was talking about having it translated into Korean, that the Korean community was going to do the translation.
That's a very general target. You have to boil into and then find someone, an individual, and your time. Anyhow, so these are all great and important topics. I'm thankful that you guys gave this time to this committee, because I think it's an important outreach effort that I want to make sure we get to. Don't miss a huge swath of people.
Well, I think the ESL issue is one. I don't understand enough about the transient voters, and I also don't understand about the lower economic status.
Those are tied into the transients, the people who move multiple times because they don't have a stable place to live, because they're not homeless technically. I mean, when I was in college, I moved 5 times one year because I didn't have the resources. There are people out there like that we're going to miss. And so, to me, they're all the same group of people.
The transient and lower economic status is the same group?
Yes.
Okay.
It's effectively people who are moving around a lot because of instability.
Okay. And then one of the other issues I did want to address was the LE.
Yes,
Oh,
you
yeah.
talk about transient
Yeah.
voters. You mean people that are moving with their language, not keep moving in and out of the language,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Supposed to qualify to vote. The
People-
residency.
People who won't receive the mailed ballot because they've moved twice. You can't just forward once, but twice.
We're not forwarding even once.
Right. So those people.
Clarification.
Yeah.
But if someone shows up here at the election center and wants to vote, and they don't speak English, what's the plan? I mean,
Well, then we find out where they live, because maps aren't in English. Maps are maps.
Right.
They point to where they live, and we give them a ballot from where they live, and we give them an envelope, and we direct them to the voting booth.
I see, okay.
They did it for me. Grandkids hate it.
So one of the other things you mentioned, LEP, limited English provision, and I poor Jackie, I'm going to say something about Jackie right now. She worked so hard to make all of our FAQs and all of our materials, so that they're 8th grade level, And there were times where, when you put that word jurisdiction in an FAQ, you've got like one of our technical words like certification, boom, it just bumps that reading level way over 12th grade. And so it's really, really hard to do that. But I want you to know that we've worked really hard to make sure that all of our brochures and our posters and our materials are probably about the 8th grade level on the Fleischman reading scale is, I believe, what it is. So we're working on that. So we've got that one addressed. We can continue to talk about our community members helping us with ESL, and I'll look forward to hearing more from you about how to address transient and lower economic status voters.
Okay, and well, let's see, any audience participation? I don't see any. So I guess we're planning to meet, the next meeting will be on the 12th of January, and we'll get an exact time off to us ahead of that so we can make plans to attend that. And we will also be meeting on the 31st of January.
12th January is noon here again.
Yes, and that'll be at City Hall then, since you'll probably be having work sessions on that day, and I'll just have Lisa pick a time and send you a notice for that. And on
Okay.
January 31st, we'll meet here.
All right. Any other information, questions for me? If not, then I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.